He doesn't want me to investigate his house. And I do want to investigate his house.
Now, I don't know about you, but hearing Natalie say that she wants to investigate my house would scare me to death, especially when she has that intense, wide-eyed look of hers going on. But Natalie is on a mission, and she's not going to stop until she sees the inside of Josh's house. Now, at the same time, Rob and Sophie are trying to put their past behind them. But Natalie's input isn't exactly helping.
I feel like you love her more than she loves you. I feel like you are the one who is pulling your couple.
I've dealt with girls like her in school. I'm not gonna let her disrespect me and on me.
Rob and Sophie's relationship is in trouble enough as it is without Natalie's input. She's just gonna make matters worse, isn't she? But before we dive into that, before we get to the relationship drama, let's kick off proceedings with Natalie and Josh. So the last time we saw them, they'd just arrived at the last resort retreat, and their big aim was to at least last for a couple of days. But the thing is, after seeing all the other couples, married couples might I add, these two now have an inflated sense of ego. They believe they're better than they are. They're somehow feeling good about their relationship. I mean, take our bedroom activity for example, they say.
You know, Natalie and I, we're okay in that department.
Our relationship, like 70%, it's sex, and 2% we fight.
Now, Josh doesn't quite agree with that. He says they fight around 75% of the time, and that's what kills our progress, he says. And when we're not fighting, when we are actually doing okay, that's when Natalie tries to rush things, Josh adds. Like, she dials up the pressure. She heaps pressure on me to have kids, he says. Now, while that might be true, right, that they definitely aren't in a good enough place to have kids, at the same time, these two have been together for 3 years. Like, it is time for Josh to make up his mind. Stop stringing her along. Decide whether or not he can see himself having a family with her. Because if he can't, well, then what he's doing is unfair. He's just wasting her time. Like, we all know just how desperately Natalie wants her own children. So, what exactly is their plan? What are they hoping to achieve by being here?
That's why we're here, to talk these things out, you know, like, listen, this is 3 weeks. And in that 3 weeks, we're going to know, yeah, we're going to do this, or no, we're not going to do this.
Right, okay, well, it sounds like a good enough plan in theory, but then again, I'm not exactly sure what they're hoping to achieve in 3 weeks that they haven't been able to achieve in 3 years. Still, hopefully the intense therapy sessions will help them in some way. And speaking of which, their first therapy session of the day involves taking a hike with rocks. Rocks upon which they've written all of the relationship issues that they're facing. Now, the point of the exercise is to actually talk about the problems that they're facing, talk about them and then find a compromise. And if they can do that, then they can get rid of that rock. They no longer have to hike with it. It's very symbolic, right? So what has Natalie written on her rock? What's the big issue that she wants to address? Well, she's written the word access, and she goes on to explain exactly what she means by that.
Access to Josh's life, because for now I'm kind of blinded. I don't understand, because my boyfriend doesn't even invite me to his house.
Here they are talking about potentially starting a family together, and yet 3 years in, and she hasn't even been to his house. I mean, yeah, it is odd. It makes you suspect that maybe Josh is hiding something. Either way, while on the hike, Josh says that he doesn't agree with Natalie.
You know, I feel like I've been giving you a lot of access, financially, emotionally, spiritually. I've given you a lot of access.
Look, there's no denying that Josh has helped Natalie a lot. He helped her with a place to stay, he helped her with money, he bought her a car. Like, all of that is valid, but that's also not what Natalie's talking about. Those aren't the issues that she cares about, at least not now. Now that she has a place to stay, a car to drive, her focus, her priorities have changed. And I really don't think it's that big of an ask to want to be able to see the inside of her long-term partner's house. So why the skepticism? Why is he so reluctant to let her see? Well, I think what she says next might give us a clue.
He doesn't want me to investigate his house. And I do want to investigate his house.
Investigate? Well, there's your problem, Natalie. Now, granted, English isn't her first language, but nothing sends a shiver down a man's spine faster than the thought of their girlfriend turning detective, turning into Sherlock Holmes with a flashlight in your living room. Or closet, for that matter. Just ask Mike. Remember how she reacted when she first saw his home? Yeah, that is probably why Josh is so scared. But, in the spirit of the hike, for the reason of compromise, he does eventually give in. He agrees that Natalie can come round as long as she's willing to abide by a few stipulations. Stipulations that Natalie doesn't even want to listen to.
You heard what I said, correct?
It was
You heard
enough,
what I
it's
said.
enough. I don't care. If you
You
don't
make it.
through
We
3
make it
weeks.
through the 3 weeks. You come over. That's the deal.
Okay, let's get rid of Stone. Thank you.
Fine.
Is it just me, or does he not really sound very hopeful that that's going to happen? There's something in the way that he says that. If we make it. He doesn't seem too sure, does he? That's a very big if. Now, the fact is, they have reached a compromise, so that means they can throw away those rocks. Now, the thing is, while on the show at least, it made it seem like this was a relatively smooth, relatively drama-free hike. On the follow-up show, on the behind-the-scenes show that they have, called Between the Sheets, they share a few unseen clips that actually tell a very different story. In fact, at one stage, things actually started to get very tense. You see, the couples were asked to share something that they were both grateful for in the relationship.
You have cared for me in my time of need. You were there for me.
It feels so forced. Like, so forced.
As Julia and Sophie point out, Josh isn't exactly comfortable with this conversation, but it could have been a sweet moment. It could have brought them closer together, right? But instead of actually listening to what he has to say, Natalie chooses to focus on the fact that Josh hasn't removed his glasses.
Why he doesn't remove glasses? Why I cannot see his eyes? People shut their eyes when they want to hide something.
Well, I'm not trying to hide. It's just something.
Good point.
I cannot believe I actually spoke that moment.
Yeah, so there's Josh trying to say nice things that he appreciates about her, but rather than accept the compliments, Natalie focuses on completely the wrong things. She's picking at him over nothing. Does it really matter that he's wearing sunglasses in the sun? I mean, come on, Natalie. And even as she watches it back, she herself realises how bad she was.
Oh my god, I'm wrong. Like, Natalie, shut up.
Yeah, she said it. Sometimes it really would be better if Natalie just shut up and listened to other people. Now, understandably, Josh gets the hump about this. He doesn't want to carry on giving compliments when he's just being told off. I find it really hard to communicate with her when she's like that, he says. And all that does is further irritate Natalie. She then gets in a mood, throws her rock, and storms off. All of which leads the therapist to conclude that there are warning signs here.
I think we see a pattern of this with Natalie. Like, she gets so mad that her emotions take over.
Just stop.
No.
Natalie. Oh no, here we go.
If she'd just stayed calm, they could have worked that out. Now, thankfully, as we saw in the episode, while it ruined the moment, it didn't ruin the entire day. But it's a warning sign, isn't it? It's a valuable insight into how they are. Now, on that theme, another couple who have similar communication issues are Rob and Sophie. On their hike, Sophie chooses the word compassion for her rock, and Rob chooses the word transparency. Why? Well, it's at this point that we're shown a flashback scene from last season.
He thinks we're exes. We're not really even exes, right? It's
Yeah, I
barely
mean-
anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't even go as far as exes. Like, you know, we were kids, like we messed around as kids.
So there is an attraction.
Now, this friend/ex of Sophie's, who flew over from the UK to the States to meet Sophie and Rob, turns out had a bit more history with Sophie than they first revealed. They wanted Rob to believe it was just a friendship, they had a kind of relationship when they were kids, but Rob reveals he found text messages on Sophie's phone indicating that things were actually more serious than they first let on. You see, Sophie and this guy's relationship was actually physical. They did sleep together. And Rob is furious that she wasn't transparent about that from the get-go. Why did you hide that from me, Sophie? He asks.
She's been lying to me about at least one thing this entire time.
He's upset that I had sex with someone when I was 14 years old.
It's not about the fact that she hooked up with him. It's about the fact she would lie to me the whole time.
Both of them are angry. Now, Sophie doesn't understand why something that happened so many years ago should be causing such big issues today. And in typical Sophie fashion, she gets up and walks off. But what she doesn't seem to understand, what the big issue is for Rob, is the fact that she's been lying. I get it, like I understand his perspective. She should have been honest about that. At the time, like she tried to downplay it. She made it seem like they were just kids. It was entirely innocent. And look, while that might be the case, the fact she wasn't upfront and honest about it, the fact she's been discussing it in text messages, does imply that it was something she deliberately and willfully kept from Rob. Now, after a lot of back and forth, right, the therapist convinces both of them that they should still go on this hike because they were thinking of not going. There's a lot of benefit to be had from it. And the therapist himself goes with them, like that they need all the help that they can get.
We did not magically resolve the issue at all, but that's the whole reason we're here, is to work through this stuff.
For once, in a welcome change, Sophie doesn't just run off to try and avoid the conflict, and Rob doesn't just start shouting. It's progress. It isn't a huge step, but it is a start. They talk about being more compassionate. They talk about trying to understand each other's feelings. And once again, in the theme of compromise, Sophie agrees that going forward, she will be more transparent about her past.
What's that like to hear her say that to you?
It's a big, it means a lot and it says a lot.
Baby steps, right? They're baby steps, but for a couple this far apart. Baby steps right now is a victory. It's something to hold on to. It's something to celebrate. And since they've been able to compromise, they get to throw away their rocks, which again makes them happy. Another sense of victory, another sense of accomplishment. But unfortunately, those warm fuzzy feelings don't last for too long. You see, no sooner are they back on the bus on the way back to the resort, while they're sat there sharing their day, Natalie chimes in and begins stirring the pot.
I feel like you love her more than she loves you. I feel like you are the one who is pulling your couple.
Now, this completely catches Sophie off guard. She'd literally just been sharing with the group about how proud she was of the progress she and Rob made today. For Natalie to come at her like that has completely soured the mood. It's ended up causing friction, not just between her and Natalie, but also between her and Rob as well.
She doesn't even know me, so I'm like, I don't understand why out of nowhere she's just sending for me when, what is she even talking about? I've dealt with girls like her in school. I'm not gonna let her disrespect me and like on me.
So what's Natalie's aim here? What's she hoping to achieve? Why is she doing this? Well, as we're shown from the behind the scenes footage in Between the Sheets, it turns out there was actually more to this than we were shown. This wasn't just a completely random out of nowhere attack on Sophie.
Why you fighting?
No, she walked off.
Why?
Yeah, because I realized some that I didn't know.
I'm sorry for that, but I see it.
Yeah, just before they got on the bus, Rob had been confiding in Natalie. He'd been giving her his version of events, and because of that, I think Natalie felt that she had to stick up for him. She felt that she had an insight, she had a valid input into their relationship. And just look at how delighted Rob is that he finally has an ally. He finally has someone on his side.
And I was like, hell yeah, somebody sees it, even if it's crazy ass Natalie. It did make me feel good, and Sophie's just, I don't know what world Sophie lives in, but she really thought I was supposed to defend her.
It's annoying, isn't it? I was only just praising them for the baby steps they were making, and then this happens. They take another massive step backwards. Sorry, like, I understand it must be nice finally having someone on your side, but throwing your wife to the wolves and then enjoying it that much isn't exactly healthy. It's not the best way to build bridges with your partner. Now, at the therapy session they have later on that evening, the therapist pleads with them. He urges them to cling on to the positives from today. Remember how good you both felt when you compromised, he tells them. But when we join them the next morning, it's clear all progress has been completely wiped out. They're back to their old ways, and it's got bad. Things are so tense between them that Sophie refuses to sit anywhere near Rob at breakfast.
Sophie and I really got into it yesterday. And, you know, today we're not in a good place. To see Sophie walk right past me, though, after her being outed as a liar, and she's mad at me.
Yeah, these two are so far apart that it's going to take a miracle to bring them back together. Both of them want to be right. They both want to prove a point. They both want to win the battle. But in doing so, they've completely missed the point of the compromise exercise. Marriage shouldn't be about proving who's right and who's wrong. It's not about proving your point. If they can't find a middle ground, if they can't work as a team, then their marriage is doomed. But it's not all over yet. It's not all over yet. Let's see what surprises the retreat can bring. I mean, if Natalie can get to see Josh's house, then maybe miracles can happen.